What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today I'll be reviewing Holby City Series 20. So without further ado, let's get into it. The 20th series of Holby City commenced airing on the 2nd of January 2018 and concluded after 52 episodes on the 27th of December 2018. Now, Series 20 of Holby City is one I remember fondly. I always remember in December 2017 having to go to like a Christmas family meal, and I remember an article flagging up saying top 10 spoilers for Series 20 of Holby City, and I was so excited about this new series of Holby City, and that's always stuck with me. Now I think that Series 20 of Holby City is really good. On rewatch, I think it has a lot more to it than I remember watching at the time, and I can't wait to discuss this series because there's a lot of great things to talk about, a lot of great character-driven storylines which are involved in this series, so let's just get on with reviewing this series. So I would say that Series 20 is carried by one specific storyline, and that is John Gaskell's Reign of Terror. Now, John Gaskell was a professor who joined Holby City at the end of Series 19, and he was kind of billed as this messiah. He was a man who was performing cutting-edge research and apparently had been able to find a cure for MS, which was obviously a massive deal because MS and degenerative diseases affect so many people in the modern world to this present day. So the idea of John Gaskell was kind of this heroic surgeon, this selfless man who would do anything for anyone and was committed to helping the human race as a whole. Now, as the series go on, we see this character fall from grace. We see how just to try and get his research done, he sinks lower and lower, eventually becoming a murderer. And I have to say, John Gaskell is such an interesting character, such a layered and complex character. Plus, you got Paul McGann starring as him. Now, Paul McGann, former Doctor Who, he is amazing in this series. He's probably the standout actor in this series of Holby City, and he makes John Gaskell such a compelling character. And I have to say, the Gaskell storyline of Series 20, it does grip you. I remember watching it at the time and literally it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? There were so many twists and turns regarding the John Gaskell storyline, and I just think it works really well. Another thing about Series 20 is a structural thing, because Holby City series tended to air from October to October. This was the first series where it aired from January to December. And I have to say, I think that was a good choice, because now 2018 was all of Series 20. It weren't like Series 19 and then a little bit of Series 20. It was an entire series of Holby City, and I just think it works a lot better. I like how the series starts with a new year because it feels like a new beginning, and it ends on Christmas because it feels like a celebration and an end to 2018. So I just think as a series, in terms of structure, it works a lot better being spread out throughout a year rather than being placed over 2 years. A series of Holby City is only as strong as its characters, and it has to be said that Holby City, it does know what it's doing with its characters. I mean, you've got some iconic characters here. The big thing about John Gaskell is he's old friends with CEO Henrik Hansen, and I have to say I like how they deal with Hansen in this series, especially his relationships with John Gaskell, as well as Roxanna MacMillan, who is also one of his oldest friends. Obviously, at the end of Series 19, we saw Hansen's son, Frederick, shoot up the hospital, which resulted in the death of Ralph DeLuca. And I like how early in this series, we see how Hansen is struggling to come to terms with that, and in the end, steps down from the role of CEO. And I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, it's going to be so strange seeing Hansen as just a consultant and not as CEO, because I'm so used to seeing him in that big chair. But I have to say, it was a nice change. We got to see a more laid back side of Hansen, a Hansen that isn't actually overwhelmed by management and politics. Instead, he's just focusing on his patients and focusing on his social life, and it was really great to see. I especially like his friendship with Roxanna. Those two have great chemistry together on screen, and I was hoping that they would get together. I really was. I thought you could clearly see a connection between them. Although saying that, I do love the plot twist near the end of the series where Roxanna is killed by John Gaskell. I mean, Roxanna was a great character during Series 20 as she is the first to kind of figure out that not everything with Gaskell is as it seems, and she eventually finds out the shocking plot twist that the guy who John Gaskell thought he had cured from MS didn't actually have MS in the first place. So all of Gaskell's research and fame have been built on lies. And this results in Gaskell not being able to cope with this, and in the end he decides to kill Roxanna. And it was a shocking moment, and it really was the point of no return for Gaskell. It was when we eventually saw that Gaskell was beyond redemption when he killed Roxanna, and that eventually results in a brilliant two-part story near the end of the series in which we see the final confrontation between Gaskell and Hansen. And I have to say, the acting between Paul McGann and Guy Henry during those scenes near the lake was the gold standard. That was impeccable. They should have been nominated for awards for those scenes alone. It was such a great way to end the storyline. And while as much as I was sad to see Gaskell die because I thought Gaskell was such a great character, I do think it was a fitting end to that Reign of Terror storyline that he was involved in. We also get a return in Serena Campbell, Catherine Russell returning after a year's absence. And I have to say, Serena is great. I loved her as acting CEO. It is unfortunate that she's not acting CEO for very long, but I do think Serena's a great character. She's got great wit, and I think Russell's a brilliant actor, so it's great to see Serena back. And yeah, I just wish that she had taken on the role of CEO permanently, because I think she would have been well suited to that position. How about some of the new characters in this series? Do they leave an impact? Well, we've got junior doctors Nikki McKendrick and Meena Chowdury. They joined in the final episodes of Series 19, and I have to say, I was never that fond of these two during Series 20 because I just found them a bit boring, and that's not the actors' fault. You know, at the end of the day, they can only work with the scripts and storylines they have been given, but I just found them a bit boring. As the series went on, I grew to like Nikki quite a bit. I liked how Nikki was quite a bubbly personality and was really committed to being the best doctor she could be. Meena, on the other hand, I was never that fond of Meena. I found her to be quite mischievous. She was a bit of a snake. She was always trying to one-up Nikki and then claim that she was best friends with Nikki. So I always found it was quite a toxic friendship, and Nikki could have done a lot better than hanging around with Meena. So I was glad that Meena left by the end of the series, you know, because I just felt that Meena weren't a great character. Registrar Xav Duval joins in this series, and I have to say, at first, hated Xav. I wanted him gone within his first few episodes because I just found him too arrogant, too cocky, very condescending, very patronising, quite sexist towards the women that he worked with. But as the series went on, his charm did win me round. You know, we started to learn more about him as a character, his backstory, and I have to say that made me grow to like him a lot. And plus, I really enjoyed his relationship with Donna Jackson. I thought those two worked really well together, and you can see there's clear chemistry between them. So I think there were some decent new characters introduced in this series. One character who I hated from the word go was new CEO Abigail Tate. And I think that the writers didn't like this character either, because she just kind of disappears halfway through the series. She doesn't even really get a proper exit. She's just gone. Like, we just learned that she resigned as CEO off screen because of all the stuff which came out about John Gaskell. And yeah, she just resigns. And I have to say, I was glad to see her go, because Abigail Tate was such a stupid character. It might as well have been Serena as CEO. That would have made more logical sense, in my opinion, anyway. We also get a couple of departures in Series 20, and I think for the most part they're handled well. As I said, I really liked the death of Roxanna. I thought it was a great twist. John Gaskell's suicide, perfect end to a great villain. We also get Oliver Valentine leave. He was shot in the head in the previous series, and an early part of this series is watching Oliver recover. And I think it's good to show that someone who suffered such a life-changing injury can recover. I think it gives hope to a lot of people. And I like how in the end Ollie decides that, you know, there's too many ghosts in Holby. He needs to move on and have a fresh start, you know, much like Zosha did. So I like Oliver's departure. I think it works very well. But there is one character who departs halfway through the series and then comes back later in the series. and that's Frida Petrenko. Now, I was so excited when Frida returned at the end of Series 19. I thought, oh my god, you can do so much with this iconic character. And yet in Series 20, I feel like they didn't do a lot. They didn't give her a lot of storylines, and as I said, she was kind of written out halfway through the series and then brought back again. So I don't know, I feel like the writers let Frida down. You know, Frida was a great character, Olga Fedori is a brilliant actor. I just feel like you could have done a lot more with that character, and they didn't take full advantage of her and what she was capable of. A massive part of Series 20 is relationships. There's a lot of relationships in Series 20, and for the most part, they're good. I mean, you've got Dom and Lofty. I mean, that is the classic Romeo and Romeo love story, and I think it's handled very well. I like how, for the most part, it's pretty stable. There are a few obstacles in their way, but, you know, in the end, they decide that they love one another and they get married by the end of this series, and I just think it works really well. And then we've got Jack and Fletch, or Flack, I think it was referred to as. Oh, so much potential with this relationship, so much chemistry between those two characters that you're literally screaming at the screen. You're like, come on, you two, you belong together. Get together right now. I loved Jack and Fletch in this series, you know, that sizzling chemistry between the two. I think that's why I hated Abigail Tate as a character, because she got with Fletch at one point, and that kind of prevented Jack from declaring her true feelings towards him. And it's like, oh, just get lost. Abigail Tate, just get out of the picture. Jack and Fletch belong together. And it was always so upsetting that by the end of this series, they kind of just leave it. It's like they decide that they're not going to do anything with it. And it's like, why? You know, an entire series worth of build-up. You should have done something. We should have got, at the end of that series, in the final episode, in that Christmas episode, we should have got Jack and Fletch declaring their love for one another and getting together. I just think that would have worked so well, and it's such a shame that they didn't do anything with that. And we also have Serena and Bernie's, you know, love story revisited. Obviously Serena returning, but Gemma Redgrave, by the looks of things, didn't want to return to the role of Bernie on a full-time basis. So she makes a couple of appearances in Series 20, kind of highlighting how long-term relationships usually don't work out. I mean, Serena ends up having a one-night stand with a junior doctor, which is not very professional in any which way. But it does provide a decent exit for Serena and Bernie, as they just decide that they want different things out of life. You know, Serena has to be there for her family, and Bernie just loves being in the army. So I did think it was a nice end to that romance, you know, and it is a shame that we didn't get the happy ever after, which fans were hoping for. But if you've got one actor that doesn't want to return to the role, then there's only so much the writers can do. So in conclusion, Holby City Series 20 is held together by the gripping Gaskell storyline and a lot of relationships which I think work for the most part. There are some good characters introduced during this series, and a lot of the exits are quite surprising and unexpected, which obviously is a great thing, because, you know, you don't want it to be too predictable. You want to be kept surprised. So I think Holby City Series 20 handles that very well. Now, at the time Holby City Series 20 was released, I remember being a little disappointed, because I thought Series 19 and Series 18 were really, really good. So I thought Series 20 was a bit of a letdown. Looking back now, I can appreciate that they were trying to do something different. I think Holby City needed that at the time, and I think it worked. You know, I have a renewed appreciation for Series 20. I think they did a really good job with this series. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future, and I will see you in another one. See ya!